Now we'll be talking about weeds and weed control. What is a weed? A weed is any plant that grows in a place where it is not expected to grow. It's a plant that grows out of place. It's a plant that you don't want on your farm at that particular time. So any plant could be a weed to you. Once you don't want it at that particular time and at that particular place, it becomes a weed. A maize plant could be a weed on your farm. That you have a banana plantation. You did not plant it and you don't want it, so it has become a weed. Even though we have a maize farmer that all he's looking out for is to get cobs of maize at the end of the planting season. So any plant at all that grows in a place where it is not expected to grow or where it is not wanted is referred to as a weed. Farmers have to work hard to prevent their crops from being invaded by weeds, and it has been recorded that losses due to weeds may be greater than those due to plant pests and diseases. We talked about plant pests and diseases in the previous class. But it has been observed that losses that occurs through weeds is greater or may be greater than what obtains with plant pests and diseases. So of what importance or effect are weeds? Number one, they compete for crops. They compete with crops for space. They are competitors. They compete for almost everything. They behave. They require what your plants require or even more. So they share everything your plants want with them. So you see that that's why they are not wanted, because they take from you. They take what your plants really need to grow. They take it from them, and sometimes they seem to be stronger. The effect of weed will grow faster than even the normal plants. So that is why. So they compete for space. They compete with your crops for sunlight. They compete with crops for nutrients. So they compete for so many things. They harbor crop pests and diseases. They harbor crop pests and diseases. They are the ones that accommodate pests and diseases, which will eventually attack your crop. Then they compete with the soil for moisture. That's the content, water content in the soil. They compete for water, compete for sunlight, compete for nutrients, compete for space. Then they lead to losses in crop yield. They compete with your crops for soil oxygen too. Then they lead to loss in the quality of crops. Let's take this example. Let's say the amount of nitrogen that a particular crop needs to grow is about, this is just an hypothetical example, it's not a real example, but I'm just making it as an example so that you understand what weeds really do to your crops. Let's say 80 grams of fertilizer, so to say, and you are applied that particular amount of fertilizer on your crops, on your farm, for the plants. Weed coming in we even want to take 75 of that percentage. Like we want to take almost everything so that your crop will be starved. At the end of the day, the quality or even the quantity of crop that you have will be very, very reduced to what you have expected. So they lead to loss in the quality of crops. They lead to loss in the income of farmers. A farmer that is expecting to get about 10 bags of corn at the end of the harvesting, now because of the effect of weed, now having just 2, that's a serious reduction in his income. So that is how they affect the farmer. Then they also result in reduction in taste of some grasses. They reduce the taste. Then some weeds are toxic to farm animals. So it's not all weeds that your animals can eat. They may be edible, but some of them are poisonous. So if your animal eats that, aside the plant now, so it has effects even also on the animals, those that are toxic in nature. Animals that eat poisonous weed or poisonous plants will definitely be affected, if not die eventually. So those are the effects of weeds on the farmer, the animal, and the crops themselves. Now, reasons why we control weed. They cause losses in crop yield, I've mentioned that. Then they lead to increased costs of farm production. By the time the farmer has to, okay, there are weeds on the farm, he also has to go and buy herbicide and buy cutlass or buy something else to prevent weeds, do this, do that. It's incurring more costs. So it has increased the cost, thereby reducing the profit that it's going to get at the end of the day. Then it's also it's increased cost of harvesting. It reduces the quality of crop products. Then it reduces the quality of animal products, such as milk, by imparting bad odor and taste to it. For instance, an animal that has gone to take a toxic weed or a weed that is toxic, that toxicity will affect every part of that animal. So the milk that is producing will have a bad odor or taste. So that's a way in reducing the quality of animal products. Then certain weeds are poisonous and can kill animals that feed on them. So imagine a farmer has 150 cows on his farm, and maybe 70 of them goes to feed on poisonous plants. Then that is great loss for him. If they eventually die, or he even has to still treat them. Then they form alternative hosts for pests. They accommodate pests. Then they form alternative hosts for pathogenic organisms that causes diseases. So they also accommodate those ones. So by the time they accommodate them, those ones will have a local standing to affect your plants. Then they compete with your crops for nutrients, for space, for light. Then they reduce the value of the land because they are sucking up nutrients that your plants ought to take. So there is a devaluation in the value of that land. The land has reduced in value. Then poisonous weeds are also dangerous to men, not only to animals. They are also dangerous to men. Maybe they are latex, the liquid that comes from them, maybe accidentally or otherwise, they can cause irritation or cause havoc to the farmer. Benefits of weed to farmers. What benefits does weed have to farmers? One, they help in checking soil erosion. Since they cover the soil, they will be everywhere on the soil. So the land is not exposed to wash away the nutrients because there are plants there. If the land is shallow, then the erosion can easily set in. Then some weeds are useful as food for man. For instance, water leaf is a weed. As far as a lot of people are concerned, even though it is cultivated and being eaten by so many, but most times you don't have to cultivate water leaf before you find it around. So people consume it. Then some weeds also serve as food for livestock. Animals generally, they feed on grasses, imperiata, cylindrica, and the rest. Spear grass, they feed on them. You see farmers, the livestock farmers going to cut those grasses for them to feed on. Then certain weeds have medicinal uses. You can just get into the bush, or this weed and that, you just put them together and you use it for a particular ailment and the person is well. Then weeds can be plowed into the soil to replenish soil nutrients. Like you use it as a manure. After you cut it, then you turn it into the soil. When it decays, then it will produce a manure effect on your farm. Some weeds are also used for roofing. For instance, there are huts and local building, bamboo buildings that they use some weeds to cover, dried weeds that they use as the roofing. Then also some weeds are used in making mats, making baskets, making brooms. Then weeds can be cut and used as mulch. That is for mulching. What is mulching? When you bring weed to the surrounding of a particular plant to suppress the effects or growth of other weeds around. That's another way you can use it. So when you put dry leaves, the dry weed will not allow the germination of other things around that place. They will start decaying. So thereby you control weed. Then you can use weed for compost making. Turn it into the ground, cover it there, then it will become manure for your plants. Then leguminous weeds harbor bacteria that help them fix atmospheric nitrogen into the soil. So that's a characteristic of leguminous plants generally. But now leguminous weeds also have that characteristics. Now I want to look at the characteristics and growth habits of selected weeds. Weeds generally, then we're talking about some other weeds. First is that production of large quantity of seeds. That's a basic characteristic of weeds, and that's why we have them in abundance. Almost everywhere you find weed. Why? They produce large quantity of seeds. Their seeds are so numerous that even after a while you have done clearing, you have done burning, you still find some in soil because they are so numerous. Then some weeds we produce by seed. So there is the seed they can last for so long, so they can germinate.